So the IRS have made some pretty big announcements just recently, and these will impact millions of Americans, primarily because right now, this is the peak moments of tax filing. Now, according to DOGE, we could very well expect up to 50% of IRS employees to be laid off. And if there's less of a workforce, we could soon expect longer delays with the tax filing. So I'm going to break down exactly what's going on and what we could be seeing in terms of a direction for the IRS going into 2025. So we'll take a look at all of this, but before we do, it takes just 2 seconds. If you're new around here and you enjoy these kind of updates, please do consider hitting the like and subscribe button down below. And without further ado, let's get into it. Let's try and play the scenario in our heads here, folks. So, you filed your tax returns on a specific date, but you haven't heard anything to say they've been processed. So you're left wondering, why is it taking so long? Well, truth be told, there could be numerous factors for this, whether it's the fact that you need to be audited, whether it's the fact that your tax returns got escalated to another department or kicked back without you even realizing, or the fact, as DOGE are proposing, reducing the workforce is what's causing the longer term delays. So we'll see what happens over the course of the year. But the IRS have already been on hand to warn the American public about what to expect in terms of delays. Take a look at this. Warnings issued on IRS tax refund delays. That's from Newsweek. Again from Newsweek. IRS tax refunds warning issued over cuts. Quote, profound effects. This from Yahoo News. Get ready for delayed tax refunds, long hold times after mass IRS firings. So clearly, something big is happening behind the scenes. But let's go back to the first article because I think it's particularly worth noting what they're saying in this article. So let's have a read of this. While the IRS has made progress in modernization, reduced staffing could slow the processing of returns, leading to potential refund delays for some taxpayers. I anticipate these delays could create a cascading effect as more returns pile up. It will become increasingly difficult for the IRS to keep pace, further straining its ability to process refunds in a timely manner. Now, this next bit is what I want to draw attention to. Have a look at this. It then goes on to say, if you send in a paper return, at a minimum, someone at the IRS has to be there to open the envelope. Bare basics. Good. And we saw in the pandemic, that doesn't get done when they get far behind. We've had situations where people send in paper traces of payments, they never get cashed, and suddenly there's additional penalties and interest. So, moral of the story here, please, if you can, do not send a paper trail of your tax returns. Because there's never a guarantee. Things can happen in transit, i.e., your returns could go missing, or there could be some sort of disaster. You just never know. So if possible, please use an e-file, electronically transfer your data over to the IRS, because that is the best and probably the most secure way of ensuring your returns are delivered. And bear in mind, if your paper payment doesn't make it to the IRS, you are not entirely immune from liability simply because you posted the check. The IRS, as mentioned in the article, they will seek to apply penalties and additional interest payments on top of the original bill because they never received your payments. It's just not worth the hassle or the headache. So please, if you can, electronically send your data across because then it's more or less a surefire guarantee that the IRS will receive the tax filings. And just as a quick disclaimer, the final date where you can file your tax returns is Tuesday, the 15th of April. So, if you haven't made a start already, please do make a start sooner rather than later. The last thing you want to do is delay this right up until the last second. Because again, unforeseen issues, you just never know. So please, get it done sooner rather than later. Now the next thing to mention, and I acknowledge this is a bit more subtle because it hasn't happened yet, but this is where we now start to see the DOGE influence on the IRS agency. Take a look at this. Map shows states with the most IRS offices expected to close after the DOGE cuts. And it's being quoted here in this article by Newsweek. that DOGE are aiming to terminate the leases on approximately 7,500 federal offices nationwide, aiming to reduce both government expenditures and office space. Now, here's what you need to know. It's not like the IRS is being singled out as one rogue government agency with numerous offices that need closing down. DOGE and the US governments, they are going around trying to close down offices across numerous government departments, primarily because most of the federal workers are still working from home. They're not actually in the buildings. So I suppose to some extent, maybe that is the purpose of the Department of Government Efficiency fulfilled. Eliminating unnecessary expenditure on office buildings. Why have leases for office buildings if no one's going to use them? If the workers are working remotely or independently, then there's no need for the actual infrastructure. There's no need to be wasting money on the buildings. So, by that standpoint, it makes sense. Now, let's take a look at the map because they said this is going to happen nationwide for 7,500 offices. Let's take a look. So you can see here with the map, it varies from state to state. Like here, you've got California with 7 that are expected to close, Arizona with 3, Oregon with 3. You move more towards the middle of the map, then you have Colorado with 0, New Mexico with 0, Texas with 1. Towards the east side, Mississippi, Alabama, Kentucky, everywhere basically. If we want to look at it in more detail, you can see here, according to the DOGE website, here's a list of the states with the most proposed office closures. In California, we discussed 7 in total. Massachusetts, 4, Kentucky, 4, Arizona, 3, Tennessee, Alabama, Oregon, all with 3 closures. We're going to see a lot of these take place over the course of this year. Now, alongside the office closures, you've also got what we discussed at the start of this video, where the IRS is aiming to eliminate up to 50% of their workforce. Now, their workforce is currently comprised of about 90,000 people, so you'd be looking at 45,000 workers being let go. And to this day, so far, 7,000 probationary workers have also been let go already. So we're well and truly underway in terms of this mass culling of federal IRS employees. But it's not even the IRS. Federal workforce cuts have also impacted other agencies. About 7,000 employees of the Social Security Administration, or 12% of its 57,000 member workforce, were let go last week, while the Energy Department saw over 10% of its staff, equating to around about 1,800 employees, also laid off last month. So what I'm saying here, in the midst of such an uncertain period for the IRS and for the federal workers of the IRS and other various government agencies, your best bet is to get this sorted as soon as possible. If they proceed with making workforce cuts in the midst of the peak tax filing season, things could change dramatically, and you don't want delays, especially as we get closer to the April 15th deadline. So it's worth just getting out of the way immediately. That's what we know as of today, and I'll make sure that I keep you all updated on any changes that happen with the IRS going forward into the new year. But until said changes are made, thank you all for watching. Please do consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video. I'll be returning soon in the coming weeks with some more content, but until then, see you all later and take care.